Okay. Welcome back, Tony.
Well, thank you for having me again.
For being here. So instead of talking about your book today, we'll be talking about your profession and hopefully giving some students and whoever's interested a good, clear idea of what it would be like to be a police officer, which is your day job.
Try
So
my best. So,
yeah, well, we'll just get going into the first question. So, who are you, and a bit about your background? Like, why should people listen to your advice on policing?
I don't know if you should listen to my advice on policing, but I'm an EPS member, so I'm the police service member for the last 18 years. I've done everything from patrol to intelligence and video forensics. So that's what I've been doing. I'm still doing video forensics right now, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years. And my background, I actually don't have a post secondary, so I worked pretty much throughout my whole life. As soon as I graduated from high school, I was a security guard for 2 years. I then went and I was an armed guard for Secure Corps for 5 years, carrying money around. So I had a
Okay.
lot of experience with that, and then that's
Okay.
what got me onto the force. So, but I
Okay.
mean,
What year would you have started in 18 years ago, like 2005?
2005, yeah.
Okay.
That was in 2005 when I got into the EPS, and back then it was a little bit different. So it's probably going to go into one of the questions in the future. But post secondary is pretty important these days. So
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that. What are the minimum requirements to get into policing nowadays?
well, the minimum requirement still is obviously being an adult. Older is usually generally the better because with life experience. But you still don't need a post secondary, but it's more competitive now than it was before. So post secondary really helps in that way. It doesn't matter if it's in policing or anything else, but any post secondary is very important. Life experience is really really important. So they're really looking for people that have some kind of experience of work experience. If you are going without post secondary, they're looking for people with a lot of life experience with not just volunteer work, but their personal life and their work life. What kind of work have you been doing that maybe complements policing?
Okay, and then I guess we can build on to that. What are some things that are not essential but could be an asset in getting the job?
Again, like
Like, so I guess to specify, like when you say life experience, like what is that?
it could be anything. It could be anything, regarding your personal life that you've gone through that you can show examples to, because a lot of the interview questions that you get are about personal experience and how you've able to meet the requirements of some of the descriptions that they give it. So it could be anything from, like I said, your personal life of what's happened and or your work experience. Like say for me, I was a security guard for 2 years. When I was 18 years old. I'm a lot older now than I was. So I was 18. I was a security guard for 2 years. So that kind of helped.
So 18 to 20, you're working security.
That's right. Yeah.
And where were you working? Like in a mall or?
All over the place actually. That was
Okay.
kind of like my first real job that I had, and
So you worked security for a few different companies then.
it was the same company, but I did different things. I was in the hospital for a little bit, doing patrol work of office buildings, industrial plants. I did a mobile patrol, so I drove around vehicles, checking out offices, locations, and stuff. So I had a whole wide experience of security in itself, like securing buildings and obviously other like alarm calls and stuff like that. So
Okay. And then so you turned about 20, you transition into guarding money.
yeah, I thought that
Like
was a
those big armored vehicles.
That's right. Yeah, I thought that was a great transition to go to. But I mean, I knew kind of policing was what I wanted to do when I was younger. So I was like, what was something that paid more or was a little more responsibilities? So armed guard was a pretty important job for me.
Because your security job, like you're not carrying a weapon on you.
No, no weapon.
Whereas armed guard for the bank, you have a weapon. It
That's
kind of,
correct. Yeah, yeah. I had firearms with me, so
like a
I had
handgun or a full on.
handgun. We had shotguns too. So
Okay.
we had shotguns, and we were trained in both. And yeah, we uh, doing that job really really showed me how important it was, especially with like security and your backups and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of good experience with that too. So again, my work experience translated to some of the policing. But anything really. I mean, just getting experience is
Yeah.
good.
So without a doubt, education and variety of life experience, but particularly, let's say, security or weapons experience helps. Like military, I'm assuming very
yeah,
similar. Right?
yeah, for sure. Military, yeah,
What about fitness? Like, how much do they take that into consideration?
huge consideration. There's
And that's been through and through, like even when you started, or
yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's huge components in knowledge base, your knowledge. So you have to do a test regarding how much knowledge you have, like the police exam, which it's really more knowledge based. There's a psych evaluation. There is a fitness test you have to endure, which is a pretty tough fitness test you have to kind of go through. So they have to make sure you have to pass them all. You can't just fail on one. You have to pass all the tests that you have to go through. So
And I'm assuming there's not a lot of room for let's say failure.
yeah, there's really no room because you're competing against other people, right? You're not just competing to meet a requirement. If you meet the requirement, that's great, but you're also then competing against 50, 60 other people in that just that area. And there, you don't want that to be left to you don't want to be just meeting the minimum requirements. You want to make the requirements that that you'd be able to exceed all those other ones and let them pick you over somebody else.
Okay.
Because there's only really 30 people per class. And that
Really?
Yeah, that's really
For all of Edmonton.
all of them. 30 people per class, and sometimes 2 classes a year, maybe.
Okay.
A lot of times could be one, could be even once every couple of years, possibly. There's hiring freezes where we just couldn't hire anybody. So it gets, like I said, it gets really competitive when you're talking about not just you know 50, 60 people. You're talking about hundreds of people that you're going up against.
Okay. So what is the recruitment process like? So let's say you put in your application to the Edmonton Police and they call you back and say, "Hey, we like your resume. We want you to come in."
Yeah, I'm not in recruit. I'm not in recruiting, but from what I can pretty much give you pretty close of what they still do. Things have slightly may have changed, but you will go in for first. You will go in for your exam, so you will go into the
A
recruitment
knowledge test.
a knowledge test.
So this
Yeah.
is multiple choice.
No, it's there may be some multiple choice now, but most of them are still like writing paragraphs. And they're knowledge based on applied knowledge, not just straight up regurgitation of something.
Yeah.
It's something that has to do with, like, say, a law. They'll give you a law, and then they'll give you a story, and then you have to apply that knowledge of the law towards the story of what they give you, and then you have to fill out what would be the procedures and stuff like that.
So you need a lot of higher level critical thinking.
Well, that's where post-secondary does come in. That helps in that way because it gives you some kind of a background to knowing going into the exam itself. So yes, that definitely helps. But anybody with common knowledge could do it and do it well. I mean, I passed with hoping it was flying colors, but I don't. They don't tell you what grade you got. So,
Yeah.
but I passed, so that's good news. But I think I did. I think I did well. But there are resources out there for it, like the police exam books that you can buy from chapters and stuff like that. Those really helped me in that part.
Interesting. So there's publicly available resources
There is. Yeah.
to help you.
Yeah.
I guess no different than like the LSAT and whatever other
That's right.
kind of medical tests, whatever you're going to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. And they're really good resources for that. And I can't remember the company. Barron's was one of the companies, and there was another company that also does them. I can't remember what it was, but just look them up. Chapters carries them. After the knowledge exam is if you pass that, is then the physical.
How many attempts do you get?
I think that has changed recently. You used to only have 2 chances.
Yeah.
In pretty much that's it, 2 chances. I think there's no limit to it anymore, but there's a deferral rate. I think you can't take it for a year or something down the road until next year.
Okay,
So
okay.
I don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure there's no limit anymore, but that when I went through, there was only 2 times really.
So at one point, for sure, it was if you fail twice, you're done.
Yeah, I think it was twice. I never got there, so
yeah.
I couldn't tell you what happened.
Okay.
So-
But I mean, that gives people an idea of like, you need to take that seriously.
Yeah, it means if they defer you, even if you fail and you can't take it for a year, I think the deferral's a year or two. I mean, how many times can you take it before you get deferred? It's a decade, right? Like you failed 3 times,
That's
60
exactly.
years.
It's like, hey, we really don't want you.
Yeah, I was like, they can easily say, yeah, you can't take it anymore. Like that's it. You're done.
Which isn't, 'cause like that wouldn't be considered discrimination. It's like, okay, well, you just failed our basic requirement.
Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah.
We've deferred you. We just don't think you're a likely candidate for the
Yeah,
job.
you don't want to study. You don't want to study and do all this work, and all of a sudden get deferred, and and try to do this again because it sucks. I mean, it's not the greatest to do that.
So you take your knowledge test, you pass that, then you move on to
The physical exam. So there's a course that you have to take. I think we do the pair still, so it's like an obstacle course, and you have to meet all the requirements of the physical. So there's like a lot of dragging, carrying, jumping, running, all those things.
so this ain't bench pressing, squatting, and deadlift.
No, it's all dynamic,
Okay.
dynamic style movements. So all the things that you kind of, I guess, do in patrol or whatever. So you're carrying a large person. It's like 150 pounds. I think you have to push, you have to pull, you have to run, you have to jump. All those things. So look it up. It's a pair test. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah. So for someone who is 18 to 25 and trying to prepare for that, like it's better for them to just get like a big sandbag, like maybe even like a punching bag, and like throw that over their shoulder, run with that, carry it, drag
That is part of it.
obstacle course stuff, rather than like, oh, I gotta get my bench press up.
Yeah, and the requirements are all online on the website. So go to the Edmonton Police Service website, recruiting website, and all the requirements are actually put on there too for you to do. So the pushing element, the pulling element, the lifting element. So how long you have to carry something for, So all those things are online. You just look it up and you can see what the requirements are.
So you pass the knowledge test. Let's say you fail the fitness test. You have to do everything again?
Yeah. Sorry, the test is good. I think the test is good for up to 2 years still.
Oh, okay.
So I think the test is good for 2 years.
But if you fail that year's round of recruiting for the fitness test, you have to come back the next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're on a tight timeline.
Yes, that's right. You really only got like one other chance at it. If you miss it, then if you pass that, obviously the physical the second time, then you move on. So
Okay. And I'm assuming, is the physical the same way as the educational, where you took it, you failed, hey, you can come back for the next class, you failed again, okay, we're going to defer you. Like clearly you have to work out a bit more, get yourself in shape, come back a year from now, do the whole thing again.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. So
Okay.
they can easily defer you if you fail it. So yeah.
So now this is fascinating to me because I would have assumed they would have done this first, but the last thing they do is a psychological test?
The psychological test is actually part of the area where they've already kind of you're on the good list, I guess. I don't know what kind of list you would think you'd be on. Like the part where you're a good candidate. Now you have to go through all the other portions of it that you have to go through. Then you get hired, so you'll get the job position. So, but that goes through like not just a psychic evaluation. You have to go through a lie detector test, and you also have to go through an actual physical examination. So, like, obviously, if there's anything wrong with your body of any sort, through doctors.
Like a medical from a doctor.
That's right. Medical, like eyesight. There's an eyesight test. There's a whole bunch of other tests you have to do.
So if I have glasses, am I disqualified, or do they just take special consideration?
They will take special considerations for it. Laser. They may ask you to get, depending on how bad the eyesight is.
I can't see without glasses, so
Yeah, there's a certain minimum requirement you do need. Though, if it's bad enough, laser eye surgery might be something that you may want to consider. If it's not bad, then you can still.
And would they be willing to help you with that, or is that like, hey, do that on your
you gotta do it.
So if they say at the end of that test, okay, like we're willing to hire you, but you need to get laser eye surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they'll specifically say you need to get laser eye surgery or any sort. And like I said, I'm not entirely sure what leeway there is for it, but there is some kind of a minimum threshold that you need.
Okay. So someone like myself, let's say, for example, with glasses and with eyesight need, if I was to seriously consider joining the police, I should probably get the surgery done beforehand.
Oh, yeah, for sure you would. You would never do it during this time because you're going through a battered test and then all of a sudden you're getting laser eye surgery. It's probably not the best time.
Well, that's good to know because I wouldn't have considered that, right?
Yeah.
What about, like, let's say you have asthma?
Yeah, that's definitely a consideration. I have asthma, and but does it uh, is it detriment to your physical activity when you go through class or when something happens out there?
Hmm.
So that definitely takes into consideration too. But how bad is your asthma, right? Like everything's subjective, right? Like how
Hmm.
bad is it? It will affect you or your life when you're out in the street or when you're going through actual class, because class is very stressful.
Hmm.
So that's definitely a consideration. So yeah.
Okay. So they put you through a lie detector. Like, what are they trying to figure out?
Well, obviously you're lying or not, so, but
Are you a sleeper agent?
that's right. You do have to go through a personal disclosure interview, which is roughly about 3 to 4 hours long, with
Whoa.
your what's called a file manager, and
Damn, how much?
it's
They're perusing through everything,
oh
eh?
yeah, they'll go through your whole personal life, everything. They'll question everything that you've done in your personal life, and if you've lied anything in your personal uh, lifetime in during the personal disclosure form,
Yeah.
then you're
Do you,
probably.
do you have any examples of what they might ask? Like, I'm assuming drug use is
Yeah,
gonna
it
be
could be
one of them.
anything. It could be alcohol related, drug related, personal life issues,
Hmm.
anything and everything. Whatever. If you look at the personal disclosure package that they give you, there's probably like hundreds of questions. Anything from very personal questions
Hmm.
to like just general questions.
Hmm.
And if you fill out any of that stuff on there, they're gonna ask you. You know,
Hmm.
any like I said, it could. Yeah. How many times do you drink in a week? You could even say like I only drink like once a month or something like that, or I drank once a week and that's it.
Hmm.
And or have you ever drank and drive? You drink and drive, and it's like no, I've never done. Then they'll ask you that. They'll it's like have you ever drank and driven any time?
Hmm.
And it's like no, I don't. I
Hmm.
haven't. Then if they it's like oh that's you're relying on that, I'm like that might not be good. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of the Seinfeld thing where Costanza tells Jerry, "It's not a lie if you believe it." Right.
Right.
So I'm assuming they'll probably ask you these questions in different ways as well.
Oh, it's pretty nerve wracking. I mean, I have nothing to hide. I'm nothing to hide
Hmm.
when I did it, and when I went through it, it was still nerve wracking. I was like,
Hmm.
oh man, what are they doing? What are they talking about? Oh, this is because
Can you see the machine? Is it
no,
okay?
it's all computerized, so it's not like
Oh,
this, that
not like the
old
old school. Okay, okay,
1960s
okay.
metal thing
Yeah,
going
okay.
on, and things are getting
You
even
just see it going
further.
haywire. Like, oh man, like, am
That's
I
not
legal?
good.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
No, it's on the computer, so.
Okay. So, all right. So you pass the physical, the knowledge test, the psych test. During this recruitment process, like, would they ever? I guess if you apply for Edmonton Public, you're probably doing all of your training and recruitment here in Edmonton.
Yes, so that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a provincial policing service, so
Okay.
we do. Calgary will do theirs, Edmonton will do theirs, kind of
Okay.
thing.
Whereas if you apply, let's say to the RCMP, they might send you somewhere else to go train.
That's correct. It's
Okay.
one place, Depot, where they train all their RCMP officers, and they get disseminated out to wherever they're going to.
Okay. What are the biggest challenges faced by people who are attempting to get hired? Like, and
Um,
I don't know how many newer recruits you're friends with, but
yeah, I speak to them quite often, so I mean, there's a lot to learn. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is you have to go through. I think it's like 26 weeks of training, and you have to
well, that's
condense.
half a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's even though it looks like it's long, you can condense 3 years of law, driving, firearms, everything and anything you need to do into like really half a year, and that's not a lot of time. So it's a very stressful time. So if you don't know how to organize your life in that way, or you feel that you're behind in one of those aspects of it, there's a lot to catch up. And if you're behind, you got to catch up, because you can easily fail the training portion and not get the job, right? You can get hired, but you may not continue on after training because they can definitely kick you out because it's a pretty stressful time.
Okay, and that kind of relates. We have another question for that. So a lot of it is just the stress from the demands of
Yeah,
26 weeks of training, which it condenses like 2 to 3, maybe 4 years of knowledge.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, even at that time, there's still so much more to learn after that. It's just whatever they're able to condense everything, what you need basically to get in.
So that 26 weeks is recruitment. That's from like, hey, we gave you a resume, or you gave them. So I gave them my resume.
Yeah.
They called me in. 26
No,
weeks of that.
no, that's
Okay.
really. It all depends. Like, it all depends on how far and how fast they can get people in. As soon as you've given the hiring papers, then it's training class. And then that's 26 weeks of training.
Oh, okay. So how long is that previous process?
I've seen. I mean, I've
Let's
seen
say for
people,
someone who's successful their first time through.
yeah, I've seen people make it in like, and it took everything, depending on your schedule too, right? Like your full time job that you're doing. I've seen people get in like in a month. Like I've seen people got their, yeah, you've been hired in under a month. I've seen people go through, especially if it's not living in this city, like they live in Regina or wherever, and they have to come in to do the interviews. They have to do that anywhere 3-4 months. Like
Okay.
it all depends on the convenience of where you're at and how fast you're willing to continue on with the process.
So if you, let's say in your previous years you've been diligent with saving because you know you want to do this, and so you can just take time off and just get this out. You could go from sending in your application to being hired within a month.
Yeah, I don't think that would be out of the
Okay.
out of the craziness out here.
And then you get hired, you do 26 weeks of training.
Yeah, I think it was 26. It changes every year, but I think we're at 26. It's 26 weeks. Then you have a practical, so you're out in the field for a little bit, and then you go back to this class for a few weeks just to conclude everything, and then you're out.
Okay. Okay. So generally speaking, what causes people to quit or to fail the police hiring process?
Just like I said, it could be any one of those factors. The physical activity, because those are really stressful. And if you think like, hey, I'm fit, and I do 15 chin-ups and run whatever. There's nothing compared to training class. It's stressful. They'll put you through rigorous training where pretty much to the point where you're kind of like puking. So and
Even for a fit person.
even for a fit person, yeah, there's a lot of situational stuff that you're gonna have to go through, like fighting something, or running and doing an obstacle course and getting pepper sprayed and then running around, or self-defense of something. So there's always exercises in between. It's not just a normal day of, hey, we're doing 15 laps around something. There's a lot of exercises, there's situations that come up.
Okay.
So
Okay. So question 6 then, you have successfully passed the recruitment process. What comes next? What does day one on the force look like? So I guess we already talked about that to an extent. But let's say after that 6 weeks, you go
Yep.
with a senior officer, like you're
after the training portion, that's usually in class, all the in-class stuff, you will then be assigned what's called a PTO, which is a training officer. So that's usually somebody that's been trained to
what does PTO stand for?
training officer. So
Okay.
it's pretty much a police training officer.
Okay.
So you have somebody that's been assigned to you. It's usually a member that's more senior and that's been trained to teach the recruits, and you're out with him. You're the partner for so many weeks.
Yeah.
So then you go through calls and all this other stuff, and there's a bunch of evaluations during that time.
Okay. So you shadow someone essentially.
Yeah,
Shadow them, or you kind of
you're actually in it, so
Okay.
you're definitely not just watching. You're definitely in it. So yeah, I would consider him more of a shadow. So
a very active shadow.
yeah. I guess so.
Okay. Okay. So what can the first year look like?
Oh man, a lot of learning, because what you learn in training class is just a bare minimum.
I guess in terms of practical, or like what would they be doing day in, day out? So your first year,
You're in it. There's no, there's nothing that will preclude you from doing something else. Another police officer, if you're going to a call, you're going to a call.
okay.
You know.
So you're just in the squad car doing whatever the police do.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's no restrictions of what that entails.
Okay. But in that first year, so you've been hired September 1st, 2020, September 1st, 2021, there's going to be that 26 weeks of training. You go out, you do that work with the PTO, and then you come back to the classroom. Once
so
you're
what-
done that,
26 weeks of training, then it's, I think, 12 weeks of the PTO.
Okay.
and then 3 weeks of the conclusion of in class again.
Okay, so that is almost the whole first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost a full.
So then once you're done that, then you can go out in a patrol car as a full-on officer. You've done your training.
Yeah.
But is there a difference between let's say there's two police officers in the vehicle? Is there a difference between the person who's driving the car and the person who's a passenger, or does it matter?
No,
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so that's kind of up to, like, if you and I are police officers and we were in the same vehicle, we would just decide, like, who's driving that day.
Yep.
Okay.
Very likely we would discuss as a partner. And I mean, obviously, if you're the PTO, they would be telling the recruit, I want you to be driving today or something. But yeah, there's no difference. There's really no positional difference, anyways.
Okay. So then the first 5 years of policing, what does that look like?
I always feel like it's the first 5 years is like the first day of work. I'm 18 years on now, and I feel like I just started last year, so There's always something to learn. There's nothing. That's the great thing about policing, I guess, in that way, is that you can learn to do all sorts of different jobs, and it's not delegated to the one thing you have to do. You have to be proficient at being a patrol member and doing the stuff that you're supposed to do, but you can really specialize in areas that you really enjoy, if it's forensics or if it's technology.
And how soon could you start doing that?
You can start training or have an interest in it right off day one, right? Like you can go for courses, or you could, and again, though, depending on manpower, you may not be able to get those courses that you want because your seniority is probably lower, and it would go to somebody that has more seniority or has been in the service for a little bit longer. But you can't really apply for a position until after, like, really the first 5 years, like a specialized area.
So the first 5 years, they really just want you out on the street patrolling.
Yeah, there are special cases, but most of the time it's like that. So.
And then in that first 5 years, like, how frequently are you going in for various training?
Every year there's what's called a GDM day. So we're mandatory. There's training.
What does that mean?
So GDM days are considered to be it's a day off, but we're off-site training.
Okay.
So all day. So it's usually there's specific days that we're just dealing with room entries, or another day will be just a specific law that's changed or whatever. So there's always mandatory training in that way. There's also firearms qualifications you have to do every single year. There's also, but if you're looking for like more specific courses, there's things that show up on the EPS database, or the website which we use, the database, which allow certain members to have the ability to apply to go want to deal with informants, or want to deal with undercover work, or and then you apply for those, and if you are granted that, then you go for that course. So, and there's courses all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What causes people to quit? You've been hired, you've done your whole 42-week process, maybe 2-3 years on the force. Like, generally speaking, early on, I don't know if it's a high turnover rate or if it's just a demand. Like, when you find out, like, oh, this guy quit, are there some common reasons?
Yeah, I kind of look at it now here and like personally, like my personal feelings of the situation. A lot of it has to do with stress. I mean, regarding if it's family related or financial related or whatever other problems you have, a lot of it has to do with stress, and not just quitting though, like also needing help, professional help when it comes to that, because this job is not for everybody, and
Not at all.
and getting into a situation where stressors can be on the outside of work and also in during work could be really detrimental to your mental health, and that I think is probably going to be your biggest factor in it. Not just quitting, but also needing professional help in that way, or just not able to continue work. So PTSD is also a huge factor, right? A mental health issue with frontline workers.
And then in terms of supports, so let's say you have some shit going on at the home life, and you go to your supervising officer and say, hey, listen, I have this very stressful situation going on. What are they willing to do? What is offered?
We have
Can you be pulled off of the
Yep, yeah, for sure.
streets?
If obviously it's a safety concern for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
they'll definitely consider it. But there are a lot of professional. The EPS is pretty good with that, with professional help. We have a long list of doctors in every field that's available for us to go and have meetings with, just to sit and talk. We even have a chaplain, a full-time chaplain, in that way. So there are a lot of resources for that. Even for addictions and stuff, we do have places for that. So, and we have the Edmonton Police Association, which also is very, like I said, pretty resourceful for that stuff. So,
Okay. What challenges, this might sound like a silly question, what challenges are people faced with on the day-to-day of policing?
yeah,
And then,
I mean, besides the obvious, which
yeah, besides the obvious. So
Yeah.
one of the things one of the students wanted me to ask, like, what are the rules of engagement for weapons? Right? Because that's obviously a challenge of like, okay, when do
Yeah.
and I don't know how much jiu-jitsu training they're bringing into the policing nowadays. So
it's basics.
Okay, so still basics.
Yeah.
So for someone who's never really done any martial arts or grappling, never really had to use their hands to hold a person down, I would imagine like that psychological process of like, okay, when do I escalate or how do I escalate? Because that must be a challenge of like, okay, do I use a taser, pepper spray, weapon?
Well, especially when it comes to like when we talk about like say grappling or hands-on type situations. I mean, what I say basics because I've been doing it for 12 years, so
Okay, yeah.
everything they're teaching is fairly basic. But again, you're condensing so much work into so little. How much can you teach of say any martial art in that time? Combined with criminal law and like I said, firearms training and so forth. But a lot of that has to do with also, like I said, the rules of engagement when it comes to like what can we use. That's knowledge based. That's all in the law and the knowledge base of what we can use. Like, can we use a firearm during this time? And those are things that it's not something you can. I mean, as we sit in this chair, we can probably, hey, I can sit here and look and think about it. When we're actually on the street and something's happening, you got a split second to make sure that you know the knowledge that you have, And it's usually, like I said, if we're arresting somebody, there are, again, rules of what we do. So if I'm arresting somebody and we have to determine, are they what's considered to be a, obviously cooperative? Are they a passive resistor? Are they a aggressive resistor?
Oh, like so passive meaning like, you're asking them to do something and they kind of chat with you and they're not necessarily like really resisting.
That's right.
But they are in some sense.
Yeah,
Like, hey, I need you to turn around and put your hands behind
That's
your
right.
back. And they're
Like,
like,
no.
hey, come on, officer. Like we're just out here having fun. Like
Yeah.
we're just having a little drink. He's resisting your request.
Definitely, that's definitely more into that area. It's like, hey, you're under arrest. Nah, no, I'm not under arrest. Stuff like that. Those are considered to be passive. And then there's like I said, are they aggressive resistors? And then they're
No officer chin. Like I'm not under arrest. They grab you. They touch you.
that's right.
Put
They
their hand on you.
they start pulling away.
Yeah.
And they start. So we have certain degrees of what we can and can't do. And like I said, and our people in the biggest thing is like, is your safety or somebody else's safety in jeopardy? Right, when this escalates, and then that escalation starts to encompass what kind of weapons choices that we have. Because we have, like I said, we have pepper spray, we have a baton, we have obviously our firearms. There's some people there's tasers. There's also we have assault rifles, we have shotguns, we have all those things, but all for different situations and all during an investigation may or may not be used. So again, there is a hierarchy of what we can and can't use. We can't just, it's like, hey, officer, everything's good, and you pull out a gun, right?
Well, it's not good anymore. Man.
Yeah. So it's not like that. There's definitely things that you have to kind of take in consideration when you speak with somebody, and also the demeanor of that person or their personal the history of that person also could be a factor in all these things. So, and like I said, have you dealt with this guy before? Is he 19 feet tall and was a MMA fighter or something? Those are all considerations, right? Like if I'm a smaller person and I look at it and somebody's being aggressive could be different. It could be different, right? Like they may not be physically punching me, but I mean, are they physically overwhelming me, then I can't do anything, So it might not be, like I said, punching. It might not be like straight up what you think it's going to be. So you have to take all those things into consideration, the environment that you're in. So, and again, it's all subjective, and all, like I say, we go through training for that stuff, and we go through scenarios, kind of dealing with all those different situations.
Any other challenges that kind of, maybe make people think like, oh like I just hate my job, I want to quit?
Yeah. Well, again,
Because it's obvious to you, you've been doing it for 18 years, but for someone who's considering the job,
yeah,
in it,
I really have to. I mean, this is only my personal feelings of the whole situation, but I think you really have to take in consideration like how the public mentality of policing, and you tend to, and I say that in that way, but it's not my intentions. It's like, you got to remember that most people are still good in the city. You got to remember, I think a large majority of people are still very good, like a large majority, 90%, 95%, I don't know, 99 of the million people that are around here. It's that 1% that you always have to deal with over time, say 18 years, that you become jaded to that situation where you're only dealing with that 1%, even though 99% of those people are still very supportive of policing. So I think that's something in my own personal head, or a lot of police officers' personal heads, that we have to take into consideration still, that like I said, there are still lots of good people out there. We're just dealing with a small amount of people that don't like the police, and we just can't take that personally. And that's the biggest thing. It's like not taking it personally, but also, having a bigger scope of, the situation and the people around.
And I imagine like one of the biggest challenges is probably psychological, because it's pretty common nowadays to just hate on the police.
Yeah.
Except for when you need them, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people express this general sentiment of like, abolish the police, or they're all pigs, right?
Yeah.
They're like, kill them, whatever, which is one of the most privileged statements to say, right? One of the things I tell my students is like, one of the awesome things about living in Canada and many Western countries is, if you have some terrible thing happen to you and you call the police, you can reasonably expect them to actually like make an honest attempt at helping you. Whereas where I come from, Pakistan, like they might show up and fine you. They might like take a bribe, like, okay, if you want us to do something, like you better pay up right now. And then they might go and do nothing, right? And so like where I'm from in Pakistan, like a lot of people don't like the police. They don't deal with the police because they don't help them.
Right. Like I said, I've been in the service, and I've said this in a few other interviews before. Like, I've been in the service for 18 years. Like, I know a lot of police officers. A lot of people know me, and I can't imagine. Like I said, I can't imagine one police officer not wanting to try to help somebody, or didn't get into the job to try to help somebody. I can't name any person personally that I speak to as a police officer. There's a lot of people that I don't know in the policing, and there's, like I said, there's always bad apples everywhere. But majority of the police officers I know are very kind people. They're out there volunteering, doing exceptional work. They're helping, like I said, the needy. I know a lady that does a lot of Special Olympic stuff, and she organized a lot of it. Like I said, I can't say enough kind words. So many people that I know. So I know, like I said, there are bad people, but man, like I said, there's not one person I can name right now out of the 18 years I was saying, oh man, I don't really, it's like, I don't think he's a really great guy, and I don't really associate those people. I don't associate with those types of people anyways too. So, and like I said, there's always bad people, but like I said, just like the police service, there's probably a small percentage that can be bad, or through. I always think of in situations just like again, bad people in itself. The context of what's happening, around them in their personal life. I mean, people can't. I think everybody can be good. Only a very small fraction are always bad. I think all people are really generally good. It's just some situations that they get into can be overwhelming, and something happened, or they don't.
Well, maybe 5 somethings are happening in a moment, and you just don't have the time to think of what the right action is.
I think I think that goes for everybody, not just in policing, but in personal life. Like going through their home life and everything else. You can like I said, 5 different things going on at once, and you just make one bad decision, and it's not the greatest for you. So, and that goes for everything.
Okay, let's talk about longevity. What can a career with the force look like? So in terms of promotions, retirement, benefits, having to move, so you talked about all these various ways that you can move up and down in the force.
Yeah.
Like, so you've been there for 18 years. Like, tell me a little bit more about what your journey's been like through the police system.
The great thing about policing itself is that you make what your life, what you want to do with it. I mean, if you want to just decide to be a patrol member for 30 years, I know a few guys that did that. I know people that have been promoted, like since 18 years ago, have been promoted to higher ranks, and they're supervising more people than they're not on the ground anymore, right? They're doing more office work, more political work. I know people that specialize and do the specialized work that they enjoy and love, like canine and tactical and all those other things.
Tactical would be kind of like SWAT.
SWAT, yeah,
Okay.
like a SWAT team.
And for some of these things that are more common, like how long would you have to be policing before they would consider you for the SWAT team?
Well, those are other demands too. To get into tactical, you have to go through when you think training, to get into police was tough. Being in tactical is even harder, because then you have to be a high marksman. You have to be able to run at a large distance at a fast pace. There's a whole bunch of skill sets that you need to be tactical to do that. And there's a whole bunch of
Go
requirements
up
for that.
20 flights of stairs with 50 pounds on you. 60
Yeah,
pounds,
I
something
think
like that.
I think there's the tactical runoff is, again, you're competing with a whole bunch of other police officers now to try to get into a very small group of people, and specialize in that situation too, right? And they're all vying for those areas that you're only maybe taking 3 or 4 people out of this whole thing. So out of 20, 30 people.
What about something like detective?
Well, detectives are promoted ranks, so they're more an investigative area in that portion. So if you decide that you're more interested in investigating, you can get promoted and do more investigations in that area.
Okay.
So then you can then become a detective, and then you work more like what you see probably in like Law and Order or something. But
And how about you? How did you get into the forensic side of things?
you know what? It's one of those things where I don't. When I got into the force, I thought I'd be doing one thing, and then I ended up doing something else. And you will find that you may have planned your life all your life. You planned your career all your life, and this is what I'm going to do. But things change all the time, and I think that goes with people in their own personal life. It's like, hey, I wanted to do this, and now I'm doing something totally different 20 years later. So I just had an opportunity to be in areas that I enjoyed and I gravitated towards, and as soon as I started doing them, I stuck with it, and I really enjoyed it. So, and I just want to continue with it. So I base my part of my career in having knowledge in that area, and having more specialties, and applying for positions that may demand that area in that area. So that's how I got into it. It was pure. I didn't think going into my career 20 years ago, or roughly about 20 years ago, that I'd be where I am now, but I look at it now and saying, what, it's been a fulfilling career for sure. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And then, so I work as a teacher, and just kind of with my contract situation, I kind of just get told what courses I'm teaching at the start of the year, right? Whereas I think once you're on a more continuous contract, you can say, hey, like I want to teach these courses.
Right.
You have more power to do that. What is that same experience like in policing? So and then in terms of shifts as well.
Yeah. It's definitely more militaristic still, like policing will take you into places where they need you to be in, if you want to go into a specialized area, you may not get in because they need you in patrol, or they need you in somewhere else in a different division, right? Like not just that division in North, you may be getting shipped to a different division, you really can't stop that, from happening. So it's like they need you where they need you, so you're going to go to it. When it comes to like,
so you have a degree of upwards and lateral mobility, but then sometimes they might just say, no, we need you here.
yeah, for sure, it definitely happens,
And could you, let's say you're working as a detective or
Mm-hmm.
you're working as forensics, could they just at some point tell you, hey, Tony, we need you to be patrolling again? Like, we need more people
Yeah.
patrolling.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, they'll tell you, hey, you're out, you're going in, and we have
Or-
areas where you can only stay for certain times too. So you just can't stay in the area forever.
And what is that? Like, what are some examples of that?
Well, my position's only 4 years, so I can only do my specific position for 4 years. If you're doing
How much time do you have left then with that?
maybe a couple of years. So I've been doing it for 2 years, so
Okay.
2 3 years. I can't remember the specific time when I started.
Mm-hmm.
Tactical, you can do 10 years.
What's that?
SWAT. So and you can only do that for 10 years. You can, and there's some areas that are only 2 years. So it's at beats and
What's beats?
so patrolling the neighborhood, like walking the neighborhood, like in certain areas, we have what's called beats members, and they
So those police officers that, if you go to White Ave or
yes,
Jasper and walk.
those are the beats guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
And beats would be in certain areas only.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Like
Like they're not just patrol.
No, they're not gonna be walking around here. So
Well, if they are, they're probably looking for someone.
yeah, that's true.
Okay.
So,
So some of the more high pedestrian areas. What about the guys who are on bicycles? Like what?
those are the beats guys too.
Okay, that's beats
yeah.
as well. Okay.
Yeah, those are the beats
Okay.
guys as well. So unless it's like the public safety unit, which are those are like during special events like riots and like the Oilers game that's possibly tonight. Those probably are the public ordnance guys out there with bikes too. So,
Oh, okay.
but most of the time it's just beats guys that have.
How does this affect your pay then? So, like, let's say you go from being a patrol officer, you get selected for SWAT, and then is that pay increase?
No.
Oh shit.
Everything is written on the website. So if you want to see the salaries, they're all the same. If you get promoted to a sergeant or a detective, then there's a pay raise in that.
Okay.
It's all based on time too. So
Okay.
so
So you get
everybody gets a raise
promotion.
after 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 11.
Okay, just similar to teaching then in that manner.
Yeah, probably.
And then if you get more training, so let's say you've done like several courses, like would they pay you more because you're a more knowledgeable police officer?
Nope, Bupkis. You get paid the same as everybody else.
Interesting.
Everybody else, as long as your rank's higher.
With teaching, it's like, you need minimum 4 years post-education or post-secondary.
Right.
But then if you get like a fifth year or a master's, you get a pay raise for each of those years of university.
Right. Yeah, no.
Where they're kind of incentivizing you to get a little bit more education,
Right.
a little more specialized. With the police, they don't.
Nope, they don't pay you more. They just, you can apply for more specific positions, so that you can do.
And even that doesn't necessarily pay you more.
Nope.
Okay.
If you're ranked constables, then everybody gets paid the same amount. I mean, besides overtime, right? Like, some people get more overtime than others, right? I don't work as much overtime as, say, a patrol member that is out there.
Okay.
So that's really the only thing.
Okay.
So, unless nobody told me, and I'm getting paid less than everybody else.
And
so.
they didn't let you in on this.
Yeah, they didn't let me in on the sauce here, so.
I had another question, but I'm so struck by what you just told me. I can't believe they don't pay you.
Yeah, I get paid as much as everybody else is in the constable's rank, so.
Okay. Well, I guess, yeah, so my second question would have been like, well, then what do you do? Like, let's say. So I was under the
Promoted.
impression, like, SWAT, it's like, okay, you get like a $10,000, $20,000 pay raise. 10 years later, they send you back to patrol. You lose 20 grand a year, but. Okay.
Nope, you
Okay.
get promoted.
So how does that work then? Like, how do they pick someone to become sergeant, or what are the ranks? So you go from, like, what's the basic rank?
Constable. Everybody's a constable when they first start, and then there's sergeant. Sergeant and detective are the same rank.
Oh, okay, so if you go detective, you get a decent pay raise.
That's right. You'll get a pay raise if you become a detective or sergeant because they're based on the same ranks. Sergeants are just more patrol supervisors, so they're out on the street supervising patrol members.
Okay.
Generally.
So constable, you just kind of do whatever they tell you to.
Yep.
Sergeant, how many people are you supervising?
In a patrol settings, a sergeant could easily be 10 people, 8 to 10.
And how many people, like how many sergeants would there be? Like how many people are at a particular unit?
There are.
Or what would you call it?
There are
PC?
8. There's 8, 9. I think there's 10. There's 10 squads now. I think this recently changed, but there's 10 squads now with 8 to 10 people each on them. So you need 10 sergeants, right, with 10 squads. And that's just for patrolling. That's just for patrol sergeants. So there are a sergeant that supervises all of us, the forensic video guys. There's sergeants that.
So what's above sergeant? So that sergeant has 8 to 10
Constables.
constables.
Yeah.
Staff sergeant has
Well, then the staff sergeants are then the area they're supervising. Say if they usually
Like there's a police compound, I don't know what you'd call it, in Millwoods, like right by Rex Millwoods Town Center.
yeah, the police station. Yeah,
So there's a staff sergeant that's in charge of that.
there's a staff sergeant. Yes, there's a staff sergeant that controls the. Well, there are multiple staff sergeants if you're talking about the patrol area in the back.
Okay.
But there's also multiple staff sergeants in the front too, right? There's a staff sergeant that controls all the front counter people. Well, sorry, there's a sergeant that controls all the constables that are in the front counter, and the staff sergeant is usually controlling the people in the front counter, or maybe in two other units too. On top of that, there's a scope of the scope of what they have.
What's above that then?
After the staff sergeant,
Yeah.
well, then it gets into well, pretty much the white shirts, so the more political aspect of policing, right? Then you have the inspector, the superintendent, and then you have deputy chiefs and the chiefs, right? Those are all guys that are way up higher.
So you probably need to put in what, 20, 25 years to get to that?
Depends on how much effort you put into it. I know people that become into those areas and I'd say like 15, 20 years, you know. I've seen people like that. I mean, it's not very often that happens, but I've seen it, you know.
So the chief of police, like how long has that person been
Well,
involved?
those guys are elected, so
Oh, okay.
those guys are elected
Okay, my bad.
by the commission, so they go through their. I mean, they have contracts. I got no clue how long the contracts are. I mean, that's way above my pay grade.
So staff sergeant right above that, and you had, could you say it again? Because what are the ranks that you can be
So the staff
promoted
sergeant,
up
then there's
to?
an inspector. The inspector usually oversees.
That's
the
a
whole building.
promotion.
Yeah, that's another
The inspector oversees the whole building.
Yeah, they're generally the. Yeah, I guess if you can think of it that way, they just have a larger scope now. So
Okay.
if the staff sergeant was say watching 4 patrol sergeants and their constables, then the inspector is watching all over all of the building that's they're dealing with, or
And then what's above that in terms of being
Superintendent.
promoted? Superintendent.
yeah, and they're really in charge of the whole thing. So the whole gamut of everything. So and again,
When you say the whole thing, you mean?
like say like the Millwoods area, the superintendent would be in charge of the whole building. The inspector really is kind of like just overseeing, like I guess like just the like sharing the responsibilities in that part, but like usually like a lot of the lesser areas for that.
Okay.
So they're both overseeing the building itself, but the superintendent's in charge of the whole thing. So
And that's the highest position that you can be promoted to?
no, you can get promoted to deputy chief, right? You can get promoted to deputy. Well, those are assigned by the people again, and again, that's way above my pay grade. So I can't. I don't even know how any of the political structure works
Okay.
in that way. I just know you can get. You know, I haven't got that far yet. So,
Okay.
but yeah, there's a whole bunch of requirements for them to do
Yeah.
it that way.
Okay. Do you mind if I just ask you like some random questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. Do you have any policing stories you'd like to share?
I got lots, but I don't know if I can say them on air, so we'll have to.
Well, what's an inspiring story, let's say, for someone who's on the fence and considering it, you know, maybe they're not so sure it's what they want to do. Like, what's something you tell them about the job that makes it worth it?
You know, the job is dangerous, man. Like I can't tell you any more than that when it comes to that. I mean, I'm doing a documentary right now with a member that was shot, or sorry, not shot. He was stabbed multiple times.
While on patrol.
Well, yeah, he was doing a special duty shift where for the what was it for? It was for a special event at the Coliseum, and he was out on the road, and it was I don't know if you remember it, but it was a few years ago where a U-Haul truck was it was the terrorist act that happened about 4 years ago, where he took a car, ran it into the police officer, got out and started stabbing him. Then he stole a U-Haul and then started to smash and run over people.
This is 2019.
Yeah, I think it was 2019. I think it was 2019. I don't quote me on it. It could have been 2017, but everything's kind of jumbled in my head right now. But
Okay.
I can look it up. But yeah,
Okay.
Mike Chernock. So I could look at Mike Chernock. So a very inspiring story about what he had to go through personally with the stabbings and stuff like that. And again, that part's really dangerous. But again, inspiring. I mean, just seeing, I like I said, there's so many good things that people have done, like way better than what I've done, and going out to locations and helping the homeless and the needy, people that, like I said, losing their houses, and them helping. Every year, the police help in giving kids presents. They all gather in together, and the police will actually deliver the presents to these families that are in need. I mean, all those things are inspiring to see. So a lot of the stuff that you don't see, that's the stuff that you don't see here, obviously, and obviously the news don't really show too much of it.
The police needs a better PR guy.
Yeah, like I said, every year.
That's new to me. I didn't know that they did some of the more charitable stuff, the gift giving.
Every year they pick families, and not just families, but just the general population. There's presents to be given, but I know this one where Cheryl Store started it, where they chose one family that had something needy. Something happened. I remember the husband passed away due on crazy circumstances, and was left.
An act of violence.
Yeah, it was something in that nature, and it was left, a widow and 3 kids, with no jobs and stuff like that. So they all pitched together, got all the money together, and so they can, for them to survive, and presents during Christmas. And
these stories, they sound a lot of it sounds like these are personal decisions made by officers who were involved.
yeah, oh yeah, all of them personal decisions by police officers to start it, and then other police officers came about to to help him to go with it. So it's every single week. It's not like like I said, it's not like once every blue moon this happens. It happens all the time. Like I said, there's so many that go through and fly by my head that you just can't remember. If it only happened like once every 2 years, I can probably remember them because it doesn't happen very often. But when it happens every week, every few days,
you just get numb to the.
Yeah, like I said, I know another member that does so much for the Special Olympics. She organizes all that stuff and to deal with it, and and she does it for her own charitable sakes. For no pay. So so again. There's so many things I can talk about, but that's something you'll have to see if you do join, and you get to see that behind the scenes, So.
Is there any lesson that you've learned in your years of policing that stands out?
Yeah, you know what?
Whether it's personal or professional.
You know what? Be organized. Just. Again, working hard is always one thing, but also seeking advice from other people, because police officers don't know everything, and we need advice from other specialty, units to give you the information that you need. And I think that also helps me in my personal life, right? Because you can't just know everything, and don't be afraid to ask help from somebody that may know more than you do, and learn from it too, So I think that's my biggest lesson of everything. I try to, learn as much as I can about any specific skill that I'm trying to do, regarding if it's a book or it's jiu-jitsu or documentaries or whatever. But there's always people that know more, and that you can ask advice for, and be open to that, and don't be afraid to ask for help, So I think that helps with policing too, right? Because there's so many aspects of policing that you're not going to know everything. So.
Okay. Well, what impact has jiu-jitsu had on your career? And I guess I'll just reiterate for those of you who don't know, and I mean the kids who are going to watch this know. So Tony is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is for most people about a 10-year process, roughly on average.
Yeah.
I think, but if you're busy working, can definitely be 10, 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah, I when I first started, and I guess this goes to the story of, memorable stories. I mean, I remember when I first started, I was a cocky police officer. You know, I'm a bigger guy, so I'm like, hey, I can handle myself. You know, when the situations arise. And you get in a situation. I remember going to a situation in this apartment building down in Abbotsfield, and you're like, okay, well, you know, it's like he's like half my size. You know, I can take care of this. You know, and I remember, you know, going to the apartment. There was a lot of crap going on and blood everywhere. You know, I don't know how much
Blood everywhere.
blood everywhere. So and all over the place. So I'm like, oh man, it's like I can kind of, I think I can take care of this. So I go in and I start, hey, you know, I was like, we got to deal with this. So, and then next thing you know, you get in an altercation with him because he's high on something or he's impaired. And I thought, and this is when I was before doing jiu-jitsu, right? So this was 15 years ago, you know, roughly, I guess, you know, yeah, probably roughly about there. And I was like, oh, okay. And you get an altercation, like I can handle him, you know, he's half my size. And next thing you know, yeah, you're in trouble. So
You're fighting a
Is what-
crackhead, and they're not feeling anything, and they have energy for the next.
yeah, so you get scared pretty quickly, especially with no self defense skills. And right after that, that's when I started thinking, like, hey, maybe jujitsu would really help in that way, you know, like. So that's really kind of part of why I do jujitsu in itself because of policing, and it's come in handy numerous times. You know, I'm just telling you this now. It's helped me out numerous times, and
I'm assuming more than you can count.
oh yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure it is. And it's just the minor things too, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not just fighting an altercation. You're talking about like how to escape something or self defense situations, right? Like and distance management and a whole bunch of other stuff too, right? And just having that confidence, I think that's the main thing is like the confidence that if something does happen, you do have something knowledge based to go back on instead of, oh my God, what the heck's going on? And, you know, and your mind's going a mile a minute. So I always said this to people, you know, it's like people always think, you know, and I'm not saying just guys, but most of the guys, you know, is like, hey, I'm a big guy. I can win a fight. You know, I've done this. You know what?
Or the I see red.
Yeah. You know what? My analogy always said, and from one of my good friends, is that, you know, I don't expect to pick up a basketball and never played basketball before and become an NBA player. You know, I don't expect you to like being able to throw a punch and think you're going to be a professional fighter, you know, because there are a lot of different situations that come up. And, you know, when the time comes, yeah, trust me, there's a lot better fighters out there than you are if you have no experience whatsoever.
Well, and like how many people, particularly if you're dealing with that 1% of the population that's like really rough. God, how many fist fights has that person been in their life?
Yeah.
How many altercations have they been, like real shit, not like in a ring with gloves on, like they've.
Like, how much experience do they have? That's the key thing, right? So, yeah.
This guy has enough amateur fights to be a pro, right?
Yeah.
But just as a criminal.
I learned that the hard way, guys, so I'm just telling you that now. You know, I look big and you know, tough back in the old days, but I know a lot more now than I ever did when I was younger, so.
Yeah. Okay, we'll wrap it up with any closing thoughts.
Yeah, you know, if you guys are ever interested, I'm not ever going to say that it's a great career to have. Sorry, it is a great career to have, I should say. I'm not gonna say not to get the job, but you got to know that it is a fairly dangerous position to have. You know, if you're interested, get a hold of, first do your research online. You can just, you know, Google it and it'll give you all the information you need, but also go speak to the recruiting office that is down in the West End. And they have training classes for like run with the recruiters, so you can go train with them, and they'll help you along with the process of trying to, if you're interested in the position. So they have way more knowledge than I ever did with that stuff because that's their job. Like I said, I'm just going through my personal experience and what I went through, and I think I would have to say most of it's pretty accurate. You know, it's still from what it was back in 18 years ago. So, but. You know, there might be a couple minor information that I may have gotten mixed up, but no, I'm pretty sure everything's still pretty good. But yeah, if you are interested, go speak to them and they'll be able to help you with everything. And that's really pretty much about it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll wrap it up then with this.